Over the past 6.5 to 7 years, I've sat down with many people in their 60s, 70s, and 80s and talked about money. Some are still trying to recover. Others have lost hope and given up on ever getting back on track. But they all have one thing in common. I wish I had known these things when I was in my 30s. Today, I'm going to share the financial lessons I've learned from the people I've spoken with. But before we begin, there's something important you should know. This isn't just another generic money advice video. Because on this list, there's one mistake that almost everyone makes without even realizing it. And that mistake can lead to serious financial hardship. I promise I'll reveal what it is. But first, there's something you need to understand. If you're watching this video, it's not too late. What matters isn't what you know right now. It's what you choose to do after watching this video all the way through. If you're ready, let's get started. Putting off saving. Grayson lived in Chicago. At 28, he landed a job at a successful software company. What do you think he did when he got his first paycheck? He immediately took out a loan and bought himself a beautiful new car. But he didn't stop there. He told himself, I have a great salary and a promising career ahead of me. As soon as he finished paying off the car, he took out another loan, this time to buy a house. While making his car and mortgage payments, Grayson was also enjoying fancy dinners, buying expensive clothes, and spending freely. I make good money, he thought, so he kept spending. And the spending never seemed to end. The problem was that while he was doing all of this, Grayson wasn't saving a single dollar. He kept telling himself, I'll start saving later. I earn enough money, so there's no rush. He thought the same way at 32. He thought the same way at 38. He changed jobs. His salary increased. But his expenses increased too. Years later, he looked at his life and realized something shocking. He had no meaningful savings at all. He had been so focused on spending what he earned that he never made saving a priority. And once you build a lifestyle around spending everything you make, saving becomes much harder than most people realize. Unfortunately, time is the one thing you can never get back. So let me ask you this. What do you think your future self would say to you today? Let me know your answer in the comments. Spending money to look more successful. Savannah lived in Nashville. She grew up in a middle-class family and landed her first professional job shortly after graduating from college. When she looked around the office, everyone seemed stylish, confident, and successful. The designer clothes, the latest smartphones, and the glamorous meals people posted on Instagram all caught her attention. She wanted to fit in. She wanted to look just as successful as everyone else. So, she applied for a credit card. Then, she got another one. Before long, Savannah was spending just like the people she admired. But eventually, the payments started piling up. Her credit card balances grew larger and larger, and her paycheck was no longer enough to keep up with the debt. During one of our conversations, she told me something I'll never forget. I can barely remember most of the things I bought, but I still feel the weight of that debt every single day. Think about that for a moment. Was it really worth taking on all that debt for a few likes, a few moments of validation, and a temporary feeling of success? But here's the part that may surprise you even more. Most people who look wealthy aren't actually wealthy, and the people who are truly wealthy are often the ones living the simplest lives. Believing that buying a house is always the right move. This is the point where people usually get surprised, because for years, we've all been told the same thing. Buy a house, don't rent. And to be fair, that advice isn't completely wrong, but it's incomplete. Declan lived in Atlanta. At 31, he decided it was time to buy a home. After all, that's what people are supposed to do, right? If you have some money saved up and you're tired of paying rent, you buy a house. So that's exactly what he did. He used virtually all of his savings for the down payment and closing costs, leaving himself with almost no financial cushion. At first, everything seemed great. Then the roof started leaking. Not long after that, the heating system failed. And while he was dealing with those expensive repairs, he received an incredible job offer on the other side of the city. The opportunity could have significantly improved his career and income. But there was a problem. He couldn't sell his house quickly enough, so he had to let the opportunity pass him by. That's when he realized an important truth. Owning a home doesn't always mean freedom. Sometimes it can become an anchor that keeps you tied to one place. So let me ask you a question. When does buying a home actually make sense? The answer is simple. Not all the time. Only at the right time and under the right circumstances. If buying a home would wipe out your savings, if there's a good chance you may need to move in the near future, or if you're not experienced enough to confidently choose the right property, waiting a little longer may be the smarter decision. Sometimes the best financial move isn't taking action immediately. Sometimes it's having the patience to wait for the right opportunity. Relying on a single source of income. Let me explain this one with a simple example. Imagine a chair with only one leg. You might be able to sit on it, but if someone gives you even the slightest push, you'll fall to the ground. Now imagine a chair with 4 legs. Even if one of those legs breaks, there's still a good chance you can keep your balance. Income works the same way. Rhett lived in Phoenix. For 15 years, he worked for the same company. He was loyal, hardworking, and dependable. The pay was good, and he felt secure in his position. There was just one problem. He had tied his entire financial life to that single paycheck. Then one day, the company downsized. Rhett lost his job. And in that moment, he realized he had been sitting on a one-legged chair the entire time. He had no meaningful savings, no additional income streams, no investments. For 6 months, he searched for another job. During that time, he lost his home. So, what's the solution? A second source of income. It doesn't have to be huge. It could be freelance work, rental income, dividend-paying investments, or even a small side project that generates extra cash. You don't need all of them, but having none of them at all can leave you far more vulnerable than you realize. Treating self-investment as a luxury. This may be the least talked about mistake on the entire list. And what I'm about to share is a truth that has completely changed the lives of many people. Scarlett was a graphic designer living in Minneapolis. For years, she worked hard in her field. The money she earned went toward bills, her children's needs, and everyday living expenses. But there was one thing she rarely spent money on: herself. She didn't take courses, she didn't buy books to expand her knowledge, she didn't attend conferences, workshops, or networking events. Years passed. Meanwhile, her colleagues were getting promoted. They earned new certifications, developed new skills, and opened doors to opportunities that hadn't existed before. Scarlett, however, stayed exactly where she was. Years later, she realized what had happened and told me something powerful. The most expensive mistake I ever made was not investing in myself. And that brings us to mistake number 5. Treating personal growth as a luxury instead of a necessity. A course, a book, a mentor, a professional conference, a networking event. These aren't simply expenses, they are investments that can create opportunities, increase your earning potential, and open doors that may otherwise remain closed. So, where is the best investment you can make? Is it in the stock market? Real estate? No. The best investment you can make is in your own mind. Living for someday. And here it is, the biggest mistake of them all. I saved this one for last because it's the foundation beneath every other mistake on this list. Colton lived in Seattle. He was smart, talented, and ambitious. He always had big plans for his future. Someday I'll start my own business. Someday I'll begin investing. Someday I'll spend more time with my family. Someday I'll take that trip I've always dreamed about. But that someday never arrived, because someday is not a date on the calendar. When Colton turned 45, he looked back on his life. He had an impressive resume and a successful career, but he also carried a long list of regrets. Today, when he talks to me, he says, "Everything I said I'd do someday, I kept putting off. Then one day, I realized that someday doesn't exist." Now, I want to ask you something. What are your somedays? Do you want to write a book? Start your own business? Take better care of your health? Begin investing for your future? Have you noticed that every one of those somedays is sitting on your shoulders like an invisible weight? And the longer you wait, the heavier that weight becomes. The garden metaphor. Now, let me show you a simple model that will help everything we've talked about make more sense and make it easier to remember. Think of life as a garden that grows through three essential elements: soil, water, and sunlight. When you're young, you have plenty of sunlight and water. In other words, you have energy and time. But your soil isn't very fertile yet. Your resources are limited, and you haven't built much wealth or experience. As you reach middle age, the soil becomes richer, and the sunlight is still strong. Now you have money and energy, but the rain doesn't come as often anymore. Your time becomes more limited. Later in life, the soil reaches its most fertile state, and the rain becomes plentiful. You have money and time, but the sunlight isn't as strong as it once was. Your energy begins to fade. The secret of life is recognizing the season when your soil, water, and sunlight are all available in the right balance, because that's when the greatest harvests are grown. And there's a good chance that season is the one you're living in right now. Today we talked about 6 financial mistakes: putting off saving, spending money to impress others, buying a home before you're truly ready, relying on a single source of income, failing to invest in yourself, and constantly postponing life with the promise of someday. I've spoken with many people who made these mistakes, and they all had one thing in common. Their regrets didn't appear overnight. They accumulated slowly, year after year, one small decision at a time. But the people who managed to turn their lives around shared something in common as well. They all said, "The moment I became aware of it was the moment everything started to change." And right now, you're aware. So let me ask you a question. Which of these 6 mistakes are you making today? The answers are already within you. Face them. Take one small step forward. Because lasting change doesn't come from one massive decision. It comes from small, consistent actions repeated over time. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to begin. It's not too late. It's never too late. And if this video helped you in any way, share it with a friend, because someone you know may need to see this message today more than ever.